We got the music blaring and it's back. It's that time again. It is Monday. It's 7 p.m. or just after 7:08 p.m. here in Sydney time. I got a bit of tan. I was at the Gold Coast. I've got hat head. I had my hat backwards, so you can see I've got a bit of a tan, but hey, we might talk about that later on, guys. But I am so excited tonight. We have a very special guest tonight, and that's why we're running this at 7 p.m. here in Sydney time, because our guest is coming live all the way from the UK, and he's a very dear friend of mine. He's a colleague. I have so much respect for this person, what he's been able to do in this field of personal growth, human performance, and mind mastery. He's a master trainer in hypnosis, a master trainer in NLP, but I'll get to that. But guys, I just want to welcome you. You know, it's Arthur Bablis here. It's MBX Insights interview time. And look, we've been in this field for almost 3 decades, 27 years, to be able to help you to rise up and become a better quality human being. And I've been blessed to experience all these wonderful modalities of change, of neuroscience, of energy work, quantum physics, Chinese medicine, energy psychology, positive psychology, NLP, hypnosis. And really the purpose of this MBX series is for me to be able to showcase this industry to all of you. You know, we're streaming this in our business page, and anyone can watch it. Share this with your friends. If you're watching live, let us know where you're watching from. #live. If you're watching as a repeat, #repeat. But we want to be able to share with you these tools that I know for me that have had a huge impact, and the thousands of people I've been blessed to be able to work with over the last 27 years. And I think we're in that time of consciousness, of humanity, for us to be able to do life better. And to do life better, we need to learn about how we can do that better, and learn more about our mind, more about our heart, more about our soul, and more about our spirit, and how we can interconnect together as one and make a difference. And so this is why I'm so excited. We've got this wonderful human being here. You know, we've got this purple background. We've had this for the last couple of weeks, but geez, imagine this is the purple pill. You're going to find out about that. Not blue, not red, but the purple pill. Guys, we have a wonderful person here. He's a master trainer in NLP, a master trainer in hypnosis. He's a huge contributor in the field of hypnosis. He lives in the UK, in Liverpool. I want everyone to put their hands together. Come on down, Mr. Marc McDermott. Let's give you some sound effects, my friend. The crowd goes wild. And an explosion. Marc is in the house. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today all the way from Liverpool in the UK. And look, I'm just so excited to be able to have a chat with you. And we were chatting just before, just getting on, and you know, we said the first time we met, we just connected. And I like what you said. It's like, you know, when you meet someone, it's just real. And you know the first time whether that conversation is genuine, you've got a connection, you'll be able to make a difference together. And you know, we've crossed paths many years back on the journey of us getting in this field of NLP and hypnosis, and you know, being blessed to become master trainers. I mean, hey, you know, we're both master trainers in this area, mate. Master trainer NLP, master trainer hypnosis, and not many of us around. And really, you know, I know yourself and myself, really our calling is to make a difference on the planet. You know, how can we transform the planet? One mind at a time, one soul at a time, one heart at a time. And you're doing some wonderful work out in the UK. I follow you like you wouldn't believe it. But before I get into that, I mean, I just noticed, I watched on Facebook yesterday, was it your anniversary yesterday, yourself and Helen, your wife?
18 years, yeah.
18 years, congratulations, my friend. Happy anniversary. It's wonderful to get to that milestone. Many, many more years for you to come with Helen. And thanks for being here. So, Marc, yeah, over to you. Tell us a little bit about the Marc McDermott story, you know, NLP Training Ltd. We'll find out about later on. But you've got a great story. I mean, because, you know, even though you learnt this stuff early on with one of the pioneers in this industry, I mean, you've come from another field where, again, you know, you're creating a product to be able to take people on a journey, right? That's the field that you came from, right? Right? So I'm sure people are going to love to know that field, and, you know, the type of stuff that you've done, and really what it is that you're doing now, and why is it that you had this calling to come into the field of, I suppose, NLP hypnosis, and specifically hypnosis. You know, but over to you, my friend.
Goodness me, I could talk for very many days, and I do, which is why I have training courses. But, you know, the short story, the question that you asked me, the first thing is, who are you? I mean, I have no idea. That's the truth. I'm finding out. I asked Helen yesterday and she just laughed and walked away because she's finding out too, you know. But I guess it's everything I could come down to is awareness. That's basically it. Just as a happenstance of how I was born, and the upbringing that I had, my mind has always been paying particular attention to the data, to what's actually happening, to not what I think about someone, but to actually just observe them instead, and everyone else instead. Remember, to me, that was normal. By the time I was, 14 or 15, when I worked out that that wasn't what everyone else was doing, that was a major surprise to me. It was a major surprise, and it took me a while, but I figured in the end that everyone kept telling me, what help they wanted. So I was doing all of that. Eventually, I figured after college that I'd train and become a therapist. So I became a Gestalt therapist, and I loved it. I used to torture people for a living, hallucinating dead relatives in chairs and talking to them and stuff like that. But
isn't it interesting when we say Gestalt therapy? What do we say, like Gestalt?
Tell me all about it.
So tell us a little bit about that, because that was the starting point for you in this field of becoming a therapist?
Yeah. It really was. And, all joking aside, I had a lot of success with hundreds of people along the way by paying attention to what they told me and feeding it back to them in a way that they found useful. That's the short story of it. But along the way, I started to notice something. I started to notice that their eyes were moving in particular directions, and I could predict to the greater extent what was going on and could actually interact with what I was observing. I thought it was going potty. So I wrote it all down on a piece of paper, which I still have. And I kept that to myself for a while. And then eventually I confessed to my supervisor, and he just said, "Oh, you'd like Richard Bandler." What? So that was it. Doorway opened. And then Richard Bandler came to the UK for the first time 6 months later. So I saved everything I had, sold one of my guitars, and went.
How long ago was this? When you
that was Richard Bandler? His course was 1997.
1997.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So I literally sold some of my stuff and I went. I had no idea, except it was something to do with the eye thing. That's all I knew. I
love that because, I first did my NLP back in 1997 with Tad James. And so,
no way.
We've known each other. We don't know. Hold on, we've got to put an explosion there. That's an explosion, right? Awesome.
So that was it. And I came back to Liverpool a week later. I've spent a week with Richard Bandler and Paul McKenna, who's a name that a lot of people know in the industry, and a rather obscure guy that I find very interesting called Michael Breen. He's a real deep cat. And I came back to Liverpool having accepted everything I was taught, to find out that everyone back home had been taught hypnosis while I was away. And everyone was using it on me in every way with everything they said and did. I mean, the bus driver had learned hypnosis. I mean, everyone had, And I went through an incredible journey of the next 6 weeks, constantly going, huh? And eventually I realized, hang on, it's got to be me. It's got to be me. It can't be all of them. I'm experiencing my own projection. And it was a real moment, because first of all, I'm like, oh no, that means I'm stuck here on my own. And a second later, I was like, no, this means I can interact with it. And I can do things with it in a way that I'd never even dreamed of before. And within 2 or 3 months, there was a real key moment that happened for me here, whereby this guy, I really liked him. Really weird people. I like weird people, I think I'm possibly one of them. And this guy, anyway, he was a spiritualist medium. He was a top dog. I mean, he was a beautiful guy, and he was the real deal. He's the only one I've met, which I consider to be the real deal as well. And anyway, he'd had his legs cut off, and he had phantom limb pain, and he kept going on about it, and about the fact that he kept stubbing his toes all the time, and he was 2 inches shorter on his false legs than he used to be. And then one day I just figured, if I'm going up the stairs and my phantom limbs stick out a couple of inches because they're longer, then I'm going to stub my toes. it's weird, but Bandler said, go and find the weird stuff. It's out there. So, I mean, who am I to deny? So I spoke to him about it, and he thought that was an interesting idea. And being a spiritualist medium, he was good at going into trance. So off we went, and I set up a simple body response, yes/no signals. And the short story is, asked his signals that used to tell him that he was in pain to do something more interesting and make the phantom limbs the same size and dimensions as the artificial limbs. And it worked. And the only problem he had was sometimes he nearly fell down the stairs because he forgot, because his legs felt like normal legs, and he has to hold the handrails to go down the stairs because they're artificial limbs. So if that was the complaint, then what can I do? I mean, if that's possible, I mean, he did it. Yeah, I didn't do it. I'm just a tour guide. But if he can do that, then what can people do? And that has been the journey from that point. Obviously, there's always the basics, as I call it. You know, you want to lose a phobia, you want to forget something like, you know, a craving, and forget it. I'm good with amnesia. I can get people to forget almost anything.
What was that?
Including their self. And to remember to have a sense of humor, because I don't take myself for 1 second seriously. Not for 1 second. And it's been my joy to spread that to other people.
Marcus, you know, I'm taking some notes as you're talking, and I love to do that when I'm talking to people, because I want to be able to start a conversation. And, you know, even though we said, we're going to ask some questions, we don't know where this conversation is going to go. We'll be talking about this and talking about that, and we'll probably come up with something new. But you talked about, you know, you came back from your learnings and you realised everyone had learned hypnosis. That's interesting, right? Everyone learned hypnosis. So somehow they were in trance. How did they learn to become in trance, right? But then you said, hold on, is it them or is it me? That it was my projection. Now I think for me, you talked about awareness earlier, and as a human being on our evolutionary journey, I mean, I think that is the Holy Grail, right? That is the Holy Grail, to have an awareness that life is your projection. Now, a lot of people talk about that. They talk the projection talk. They read the books. They act like they're spiritually evolved. But you know what? And I tell you what, I would say I was probably one of them many, many years ago.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But it's not unless, and I think you get it because you're 27 years from the time that you did something with Bandler, 27 years from the time we did something with Tad. You go on this journey, and I think, you know, people talk about experience. It's not so much experience, it's the experience of life and the understanding of the roller coaster that we owned. And learning, I think for me, the one greatest gift, the one thing that we can learn as a human being that transcends us to the next level is humility. That one word, humility. And to look back and realize, man, like everything happened for a reason, and what role did I play there? Was that me? And if it was me then, what's me now? Like, who am I now, as you said? And so I love what you said, because you stood back and you said, you know what? Is it a projection of me? Because that's an awareness of ourselves, and that's how we're going to grow and evolve. And then you said something along the line that you're just a tool guy. I didn't do the work, but you're just a tool guy. And I love that too. Because that's what we're just here to facilitate the change. We're not the healers. We don't put the hands on the body and say, hello, your brother or sister, you're healed. Some people do that work, and, you know, I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just, you know, people create the belief in their mind that they're healed. So what you're able to do is help this person take on a belief that anything is possible. And you know why? Because you've done the work and you understand about projection. And you see that person as an ultimate being of light. How can someone get a result with anything that anyone uses? Unless the person who's doing the facilitation hasn't got an undeniable belief, right? Not only in the tools that they're using, but in the individual that they're working with. They see them as an ultimate being of light. And if they can't see them as an ultimate being of light, then they can't see themselves as an ultimate being of light, because that's the projection. So, man, I want to honor you because of what you just said there. It's just, for me, it says a lot, because it's the understanding of the work. And we know Andre Watson, if I said it right, that anyone like a client of a hypnotherapist or whatever modality you're in will only materialize what the practitioner believes or think is possible. Now here's my take, right? This is, maybe it's my charge, my trigger, I've got to work on it. Today, in such a deregulated industry, everyone's a coach. Everyone does hypnosis. Everyone does all this work. And they say everyone's jumping in this field to make a quick buck. They're not necessarily coming in it, right, to make the change, right? And they don't last. They come and go. 27 years of longevity, my friend. That says something, right? And do they have that belief they can make the change because they haven't had that experience of working with people? So, yeah, more power to you. I just wanted to mention that because it's a big thing. It's a big thing, and that's why you're successful. That's why you're running NLP Training Company in England, and you're successful with what you're doing, and why you're asked to speak at all the conferences around the world on hypnosis, why you're asked by other organizations to go and do training for them. Not everyone gets that opportunity, mate. You get that because of the work that you've done. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, you know, we're just, humility, you said. At the end of the day, I'm not blowing off steam up everyone's ass about how great I am. I don't see myself as more than a passing moment in other people's lives, and that's the truth. But if that moment is a moment of clarity for that person, and that I can bring some of, look, I offer the entire thing to every single person that I work with and every student that I teach.
The entire thing? Well, the entire thing. Okay,
the
now
entire thing.
The entire
thing. Yeah.
Right.
So people can either come out of their trance temporarily while we do a piece of work together and then make the adjustment and then otherwise continue with life as before, or they can get it, keep it, and that's it. There's another one going out there and telling other things. I would love everyone to do that, but you know, I think it takes a bit of determination. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken us 27 years, you know, to build and maintain the reality which we currently inhabit. Which I don't know about you, but I like mine. It seems to be really nice. I wake up every day and I feel great. I designed it that way. It's not an accident, you know. So it's great. Oh, an anchor, great. Let's all touch knuckles. Did you get up this morning and fire your anchor for brilliance? Did you actually do that? Did you set it so your unconscious mind associates waking up with feeling amazing? I mean, it's just a simple thing to do, and that's one of the things that I think that I encourage, especially when I teach. I encourage everyone to use everything on themselves, because how else are you gonna, you have a very short loop to your own mind, as far as I'm concerned, within 4 minutes. If you don't make the adjustment, then you will forget that you said or thought the thought that you thought. Most of it, think about it. What did you have for lunch on July the 3rd, 2012? Unless you're one of my clients, you won't remember. One of my clients did remember, because she eats the same thing for lunch every day. It was a surprise, but that's autism for you. But most people don't. I don't remember what I had. I don't remember very much at all. And the more I think about it, the less I actually remember. So actually, I forget almost everything consciously, and that's okay. So let's forget the things that I want to forget and associate with what I want to remember, because the only things I remember are what I consider to be important. And other than that, my mind is basically blank.
Look, you said a couple of things. I want to open up this discussion with you. I want to hear your take on it, because obviously with the work that we do, right? You said when you're working with people, you work with them to bring them out of trance, to do some stuff with them and put them back in, or get them, or they get it or they don't get it. So when you're saying that people are already in trance.
Absolutely.
They're in trance of the past. They're in trance of what they've decided to hook in to make things mean. And so people say, what's this hypnosis? You can't hypnotize me and this doesn't work on me. Like, that's right, because you're already under trance. Hypnosis, the way you got to come out of trance. Because right now, you're in the trance of your past. So many people allow the past to govern their present, right? Or the trance of the future to govern the present. You've got the people who are caught up in the past, And then people are just caught up in the future and forget to experience the joy of their, I suppose, the frequency, the energy, the vibration on this planet, and just being, right, in that experience. And so you bring them out of trance. I want to know, about that and tools that you use, and specifically we're going to get into, with everything that you've worked, you've developed this, or this. This system, which is called this, right? But you also talked about this. Well, you will. But you said, you love your life, you love the reality you created, you designed it that way. And so what are you saying? You're saying that we can help people to design the life they want, the way they want it, if they're prepared to come out of the trance that they're in, to create a mindset or neurology, a different thinking, a different trance of possibility.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Doing a couple more words.
but tell me, how did you do that specifically? Because, design your life the way you want it. It presupposes it wasn't necessarily the way you wanted it before. Right? And that's why people come to us. It's like they're experiencing life right now. They would like to experience life in a different way. And between where they are now and where they want to be, there's a gap. And so they come to us to help them bridge that gap. And so I want to know a bit more about the Marc story. Tell us a little bit about your life before. I mean, you did this stuff early on, but what else were you doing? Because you were in the film industry, weren't you? You did some stuff in the film industry.
Yeah, what an accident. My last I ended up working for Ridley Scott, who's a name that some people will know, and in the UK system anyway, he's kind of like, one of the top cheeses. He's a lovely guy. The company's fantastic and everything. My last 5 films were with that company. How did I get there? Well, when I came back, one of the things I thought after the Richard Bandler experience and the 6 weeks of fantastic roller coaster that happened after that, which, looking back, if I'd have known that once I came out the other side of that it was over, I'd have probably stretched it out a little bit longer, because I loved it in retrospect. It was hilarious, but it was hair raising at the same time. In one way, I could call it a toxic wake up, because understanding that you are your own perception is quite a trip. It was a case of it was a blue pill.
Okay.
It was purple pill. There we go. Red and blue. Everything was exactly the same as a second before, and it was completely different and changed forever. It took a while to get used to that, but it's where I was always coming to anyway. And inside me, I was always in this position anyway. It's just that I'd conned myself into, or been allowed to, or taught and conned into accepting a reality that wasn't actually the reality that existed. And when I came to the idea that actually this is it, then there were dominoes already falling, to move into metaphor for a moment. They were falling. I'm just not going to push over anymore. I'm not going to start any more of that old life. But there were consequences already rolling from the one that I had inhabited up until that very moment in time. At the same time as doing all of that, I thought I need to show other people. So how can I show other people? Well, maybe make some products. How can I make products? I've never done that before. I mean, I'm a musician. I've been in studios and watched other people with all the sliders and stuff, but no. So I went back to college and did professional media, and made some TV programs while I was actually a student. That was kind of interesting. And next thing, people would say, hey, do you want to just pick up on this sports program for us and run the camera, and we'll pay you money. So one thing led to another, and it was a side hustle, if you like, and then eventually it kind of swallowed me whole for a while. And I did less work, one-to-one stuff at that point, because I was spending 6 months on a film, in a windowless basement, usually in Soho in London, and because editors don't need windows, do they? And But I eventually ended up running the system. That's what I did. I would build the entire system, the networks, the servers, the databases and everything. So even when I worked on a Japanese film where the database was filled with little squiggly letters that I couldn't read, it was still my system. So I could still actually run it and locate all the footage and do all the things I was meant to do.
Tell us, so you work with Ridley Scott, you helped, you put together 6 films, and some of these films that people know very well, right, that you worked on and you put together. What is it that you learned there that helped you? Because really, putting films together, you're helping people go on a journey with a film, right? Okay. What is it that you learned there that, looking back at it now, has supported you really creating your brand now as NLP Training Company, especially with hypnosis, and ultimately putting this together?
Yeah, so
this is it, right?
This is it. I guess the thing that really it brought home to me, which I'd never really realized before, was that for some reason, and I don't really care why, and it must be true for everyone else, because I'm not that exceptional. I'm just a human being. At the end of the day, that's it.
Well, some would say that's exceptional. Just to be a human being is exceptional.
It should just be who you are. Don't all the ancient books say, okay, so look at Buddhism. Buddhism talks about the idea that all suffering is from connection or connectedness or whatever, and give up those things and suddenly you're okay. Well, if my reality isn't the way that I want it to be, then I'm making a whole assumption there that reality isn't how I want it to be. So because of my wanting it to be different, in other words, projecting my mind into a place that isn't now, then my body can't tell the difference between a fantasy in my mind of the future or the past and the present moment. So it's going to start to respond that way. And so if that's the game, then it's really obvious, isn't it? I have to accept where I am. There's no blame, there's no nothing. It's like, oh, I've just woken up. Here I am. Okay, so what can I do with it? What's this thing? I'm a pretty weird shape, but I can do things with it. And that's why I study martial arts and all these things that I do with my life. 42 years of that. I mean, you'd think I'd know something about it by now. But I haven't got a clue. But I don't tell that to beginners when they come on the mat, and just teach them a forward roll and we start from there, But it's all about awareness. Now. All the books say it, Vedic scriptures, we could talk about all the different books. You've read heaps of them yourself, I know. And all those esoteric teachings from around the world, they all are saying exactly the same thing, that everything that's possible to exist exists right now. That's it. So being now is definitely where it's at. So if I allow myself to think about the thing that I could call the future, right, which doesn't exist, then I'm going to create what I want there. I'm not going to imagine the future not going the way I want it to go, because my body will respond like that instead, because it's helping me out. It's helping me out in every way that I ask it to be. So if I'm not asking, then who is? So I'm the driver. I'm the one that's giving the instructions. And the same for the past. If I imagine the story of the past that I tell myself, as opposed to the recording of the 5 senses and all the self-talk that actually happened, if I tell myself that story and tell myself a story that's not good, or focus on the things that I associate with not being pleasant in the past, then my body can't tell the difference. So it'll head in that direction and I'll start to respond there. Now, the kind of chemicals I want in my body on an ongoing basis are, dopamine, serotonin, nice things. I'm not going to hit the cortisol button and the adrenaline button and then fire myself up, then get really in a tangle and pick up the phone. I mean, that's just not going to help, is it? That's kind of 101. So the thing that the film industry brought to me was that for some reason my mind is able to track vast amounts of data for a short space of time and produce what's needed when it's asked. So one of the films I dealt with, we didn't think it would happen, but that's the way it went. We had 85,000 people in 196 countries sent us 4,500 hours of footage in 153 different film formats over 600 languages. And all of that turned up on my desk because it all had to be 24 frames a second to go into the cinema. So if you've got something that's 6 frames a second and you've got something else that's 10,000 frames a second, and you've got something else that's 1 frame every 2 days, because that was coming from Antarctica, then how do you put that together so that it actually works? It was a huge problem, and frankly, we did not have a system because it didn't exist. So we had to create one. I had to create something that had never existed before. And we had to, because it had to be shown at the Sundance Festival. Wow. Because it had to. So that was the destination. So we had no idea, literally no idea how to get to that destination, but we knew what the destination was. And we knew where we were. So how do you...
I think I'm getting now the gist of your journey here now, Mark. So you're the system guy. You're able to actually take all this data from so many different languages, different peoples, different backgrounds, whatever the case is, different formats. And that's all we do as individuals. That's how we experience life, in our own language, in a different format, whatever, blah, 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 and create a system to experience it. And so you took that, well, that strategy or that know-how, and is this what you did with this? You put this into human performance. You can say, okay, there's so many people.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It took a while. Like, yeah, but I've figured out how I'm operating.
So let's talk about this, because, you know, in this field of human performance, hypnosis, NLP, the work that you're doing, and as I said, you're really a pioneer with, you know, speaking in all these different places, and, you know, put that hat on and wear that jacket and notice how it feels, because you deserve that, Mark, right? You've created what you call this, trademarked, THIS, the Human Interactive System. Now, we had a chat about it the other day, and we said, is it the red pill or the red pill or the blue pill? I said, what about the purple pill? What if it's both? What if it's everything? You give people everything. So tell us then, this system that you've put together to be able to, I suppose, understand everyone's experience, to be able to help them get to, well, their next stage of evolution.
Yeah, whatever it is for them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so can I explain it in a way that's extremely simple and anyone can understand, or should I cloak it in 13 letter words and obfuscate?
Well, what do you think is best?
How about if it was simple and easy and a 6-year-old child could really understand it? How about that? How about if everyone who's watching this at the moment could get it in an instant for themselves and have it forever? Because in Zen, not Zen Buddhism, but in Zen, before someone put it into a system, you know, the idea was you can have it all with no training, no background, nothing leading up to it. You can just have it all. If you're really lucky, you'll keep it, you know. But it's not an end destination. It's only a point along the way, you know. In Chinese hexagrams, 63 is completion, not 64. 64 is after completion. Yeah, it's even written about in lots of different systems that I've read about. It's very simple. There's a book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. I really like that, because a second later there was indeed dirty socks still to go in the washing machine. That didn't go away. It was all still there, you know. So the system, okay, so if you're going to harness a system that you can't possibly ever experience consciously, because, you know, while I was asleep a couple of hours ago, something was breathing me and it was doing a lot of things, and I did not exist at that moment. The I that's speaking, the speaker of this sentence, wasn't here. You know, and it was a casual statement. It was something that Richard Bandler said to me at one point. He said, I is the greatest nominalization. So just denominalize I. So the I'd entity. And if we can play a game, right? I like this game. So we could call this anything we like, right? We could argue the toss, but I'm going to call it a pen. Okay. So we can agree that this is a pen, right? And if you're observing the pen, then you're not the pen because you're observing it. Yeah. Follow me so far, right?
Yeah.
Thought. If you're observing the thought, you're not the thought, you're observing it. Yeah. If you're observing the emotion, the state, whatever you want to call it, then you're not that emotion or that state. If you're observing your body, well, you're not the body, you know? I am not this form. I'm inhabiting this form, but I'm not the form. At some point, this form will cease to hang out. and that's it for the form. But to be free of the form is where it's at. You know, I jokingly said I know nothing about Aikido after God knows how long. If we practice a thing, we practice a form. In hypnosis, you could call it all the thing, whatever, Miltonian, you've got the language, whatever, you know, but that's just a form. If you're stuck in the form, and most people who train are stuck in the form, and they cannot go outside the form, and that's fair enough. It's fair enough, and at any point along the way, they might realize and move from the form. And certainly when I teach, I encourage people, once they get the basics of the form, I start to encourage them to move away from the form at a rate and speed at which they feel comfortable. But to know that you're not the form, to know that the mind is not local, it's elsewhere, to know that it's not the form, it's not the thought, it's nothing. It's all just, we are tertiary beings. We are not binary beings. We're not computers. It's not on and off. There's a third place. There's always another place that you can be in your mind, and it's different. So if I'm not the form, and I'm not the thoughts, and I'm not the emotions, and I'm not the I, then whew, however, there's a well, I'm finding out. The continuum of experience that's unfolding moment to moment right now is the place where I inhabit. If you look for me elsewhere, you're not going to find me. And that's okay. Most people don't look elsewhere. Occasionally I bump into someone like you.
And what you're saying, I mean, that's part of the evolutionary journey, right? I mean, if we're saying, I mean, I did some teachings with a guy called Jim Fortin, and he always said that we are not our thoughts, we are the thinker of our thoughts, which is exactly what you're saying, right? Yeah, so we're the thinker. So who is that thinker? Because we're not the thought, we're the something, the observer of the thought. So who is that observer, right? And so if we agree that we're energetic or spiritual beings that chose to have a physical experience, all right, we're somewhere in some other dimension, which is this dimension, because it's everywhere, right? Yeah. We decided to come into this form. For what purpose is the question, right? And so is the lesson to understand the form, to understand how to be formless? Because you're right, it's important to understand the form, to understand what formless is. How do you know you're formless if you don't know the form? Because we chose to be in this form, in this body, as a high vibrational being. But many people disregard to understand the physical nature, to be able to transcend beyond form. So I think that's part of the journey. That's my thought.
Yeah, I know, I agree totally. It is a journey, you know. Until you do the basics, you're not going to be able to do other things. But the basics are simple. Anyone can do it. Like, say, wake up feeling good. If maybe once a year that doesn't automatically happen for me, then I have the manual override button, because I learned that at practitioner level NLP. I mean, you know, hit the button, feel good. If you can't do that, you're not doing it, you know. Yeah, for me, being 10 foot away from James Brown while he was playing I Feel Good, if I remember that moment, yeah. I feel good. You know what I mean? And I could talk about lots and lots of musical experiences that I've been in front of legends of many, many genres. And that, for me, that's easy. I remember those times, boom, I'm right there. and makes the body feel good. That's just a basic thing. But what's the structure? What's my structure? How does the structure experience itself in terms of the words that come out? Because right now, sure, you could turn the camera off and still hear me. The words are, you know, very little of the total communication, but it's what I have at the moment. Yeah. So you probably notice, and anyone who watches this video back, I imagine that they would notice, that it's possible to notice anyway, that there's not really much content in the words that I speak. I don't actually say.
Don't come out of this and think, what was that conversation about? Like in this form, right? Consciously. Yeah. What did these guys talk about?
So watch it again. And so, but there's a structure. So the content words themselves, like words like phone, elephant, plate, they're content words. They're thing words, and they don't do anything. Yeah, you could call an elephant a but it's difficult to say and spell. So in English, I'll call it an elephant, but we know what I'm talking about. But those words don't do anything. They're like fancy little curls on a rooftop that don't do anything to the roof, but they just look nice. You know, they don't do anything. But there are certain words that you have to speak in order to speak. And in any language, and I've asked lots of people in different languages, as you know, when we've done trainings with Tad James Company and other people, we get to mix with people from all over the world, and I get to ask questions because I have questions for everyone. And so it's the same in every language. There's a certain amount of language that by the time you're 5 or 6, you're speaking, because otherwise you can't do anything. You know, by the time you've got question words, you know, how, what, where, when, which, why, and you've got it, this, that, the, other, and a few numbers, 1, 2, few, many, all, that'll kind of cover a lot of range, you know, and very few other words, you know, you need how I've talked about question words. Once a kid gets what and that and sticks them together in a sentence, you know, it's like, well, what's that? Well, it's a chair. Well, what's that? It's a chair. What's that? Well, it's a chair. What's that? It's a chair. What's that? A chair. Chair. Yes. Oh, what's that? And months go by as they build up this collection of thing words. But that would have done, because that was what they were saying. What's that? That is not here. Here is this. This is here. That is there. You hear me? So okay, well, if this is it,
so the question is, it's not what's that, it's what's this?
What's this? What is this? There's a complex equivalence. Oh, I said a big word. What about if it?
I will understand that.
Exactly. So this, linguistically, if I'm going to talk about myself and I'm not speaking directly, then I'll probably talk about it in terms of metaphorical language, all of which I can completely ignore because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all. Structurally, it doesn't actually achieve anything. I kept asking people, what the hell is this mulberry bush? What, everyone's skipping around this bloody mulberry bush with me when they're talking, when, you know, as a client, it's like anything but say what it is, you know? And I'm like, what the hell is the mulberry bush, you know? And then I realized that linguistically, it is the mulberry bush. This is the current state of it. That is applicable to point B on the map that's being paid for. And so if I listen to the language of that, then I'll pick up exactly what that is for them. If I listen to what this is for them, then I hear point A on the map. There is only point A on the map and point B on the map in terms of work. And in terms of myself, it's
talking
exactly
about point A, point B, Mark. I don't want to stop this conversation, but we've gone 45 minutes in. We're at point B.
Yeah. But it's still now.
Oh, no, but it's still now. We've just started, right? And so, look, to wrap it up, I want people to, I mean, they got in that message, there's a message that they need to listen to again to understand this, right? But if you explain this simply, and also if people wanted to know more about this, how could they find out about you? How can they connect about you? Because I know you're planning to hold your first ever this training program, right? The Human Interactive System Training Program. Now, you're in this field from '97 and you're bringing so much experience to this, to understand all of this, all right? I mean, this is it.
This is it.
So if people want to know more about the Human Interactive System, and yeah, maybe you're an existing therapist, practitioner, healer, maybe you've done some hypnosis or NLP, maybe you've done some other work in the field of arts or consciousness, and if you want to know more about this, how do they find out about you, Mark? How do they find out about this? How do we create a call to action here?
Well, you know, this is what they're doing already, of course. The language is simply the tool which self-unfolds. That's the way I can allude to it. I'm going to teach first time. I've done a lot of work to put it through. I've practiced with some of my most advanced students who are already trainers themselves in hypnosis, and allowed themselves very nicely to be guinea pigs. And allowed me to do whatever I like with them. So that's really nice. As a result of that, I've pulled together this training. So 15th to 19th of June is the first time I'm gonna roll it. I'm sure we can put some details in the comment section for how to contact me. The whole purpose of it is to lock someone into the experience for themselves, so that they can walk away with it. And I've therefore made myself completely redundant with that person. That's the ideal. I want that for everyone, because from my perspective, of course, everyone's already here.
Oh, look, I love what you just said, because that's the ultimate, if we're talking about healing and evolving to whatever your next level is, our job as a facilitator is to make ourselves redundant, right? Not to make the person that we're working with, when I want to say connected, what's the word? Like dependent on us, right? It's like, you know, we're fixing them. No, we're helping them to fix themselves, helping them to create that awareness so they can get to that next level, whatever that is. And to know that my job is to no longer be needed, that again shows the evolution of the practitioner, the therapist, facilitator, the person who's, you know, leading this journey for the person. So
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what it is. I've seen, although I haven't talked about its specifics in this, you know, chat, but I've seen people do things that are not in the medical books, they're not in any bloody books, and they've gone out and done that just by being allowed to be in a place within themselves where they can draw that resource out and actualize it. So that's what it's all about.
Awesome. So look, we're going to put in the chat, so if people want to connect with you and ask more questions, they can connect with you like Marc McDermott. They're on Facebook, so we can put a link on connecting with you, but also a link to your business page there, NLP Training Ltd. So people connect with you, maybe reach out, send you a personal message. If they want to put a question here on the chat, and you know, we can reply to it and connect them with you. You know, anyone that might be interested to learn more about this, and look, wherever you're at, just if you want to learn more about hypnosis or NLP and all the work that Marc has done, and maybe connect to some of his trainings, whether you do it live, decide to go all the way to Liverpool, which is here, right? Or do it online, because I know you do a combination of work. Just reach out to Marc, and I'm sure that you'll have the experience that you need to have in order for you to get to the next level that you need to get to, if that's what needs to happen. So let's just do it that way. So we'll get the girls, if Patricia or Crystal can put your details in the chat there, that'll be awesome, and people can connect with you. Marc, look, it's been a real pleasure. We've gone almost 50 minutes in this conversation, one of the longest chats. So we might have to do a part 2. You know, people saying, hey, did they really talk about this? Did I miss something? Then we'll make sure they can miss it again.
Yeah. I'll do it the other way around. With content. That'll blow them away. With content.
So I just want to thank you so much for being here, Marc, and sharing your time all the way from Patricia's saying part 2, please. All right. Well, so she wants to come out of the trance now. So she's been in the trance.
Yeah, now she knows she's in one.
All right. And same with Crystal. So look, again, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure having a chat with you. If anyone wants to reach out to Marc, make sure you connect to him in his Facebook pages, or leave a message here and we'll get hold of him. On behalf of everyone, Marc, thank you so much. Love the work that you do. Love who you are as a person. You're a funny guy. You had me in trance. I don't really know what we talked about, but I know something happened inside, as it always does. All right. Yes, that's right. And is that a pen that can erase itself as well? Interesting. Yes, very good. So let's just erase that and start again. So Marc, again, thank you so much. Guys, we will see you next time.